Welcome to the podcast for real-life heroines. Let's embark on a journey that unveils the extraordinary stories of everyday women who redefine what it means to be a heroine or hero. Life is a tapestry of inspiration and magic, and today's episode is no exception. Here's your host, Susanna Liller.
Hello, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast for Real Life Heroines, where I get to interview and talk to wonderful people who have left their comfort zones and explored the world outside, explored the unknown. And I'm so pleased to have Rebecca Goff here with me today. Welcome, Rebecca.
Thank you for having me today.
It's great to have you here. And you are, Rebecca, as you will see, is someone who has been so willing to leave her comfort zone, to leave her, what we call in the heroine's journey, her ordinary life, and explored what's out there. So let me also tell you, let's start by explaining that Rebecca is a transitions coach. She helps people transition from their career. And she, as you will see, is a master at it herself, at career development, career transition. And now she's, with her online course, going to be teaching people how to do this. And I'm going to let you talk about that, Rebecca, but it's called How to Thrive When You Retire. And when we talked earlier, and we've had a lot of conversations actually, and I will tell people why that is, but we talk about how you want to honor your passions, and you have several, that you wanted to leave a legacy, and you wanted to help people thrive, particularly when they get to be over 50. So can I start by just explaining how we know each other and how we've had.
Sure,
Okay.
sure.
So I love this story. And this is something that is so true, that there are so many heroines out there. All you have to do is ask them to tell their story, and you get such a blessing from learning about what people are doing in their lives. And so I was looking for somebody to do my hair locally. I had been driving an hour to get my hair cut, and yes, and colored. And I finally thought, this is silly, Susanna. Let's just see if there's somebody close by. I did some checking, and here's this woman, Rebecca Goff Salon. So I got an appointment, and I walked into her salon, which is right next to our beautiful, big, huge Kennebec River. She's right there on the shore. And I knew something was up the minute I walked in, because you've all been in hair salons. I walk into this hair salon, there's the normal chair in the sink and everything. On the other side, there's this beautiful white baby grand piano with chairs all lined up. But all right, there is a story here. I need to hear it. So, Rebecca, why don't you tell the story instead of me?
Sure,
Why?
sure.
Tell us why you have a baby grand piano in your hair salon.
So I am a professional singer. I just finished my master's of music at University of Southern Maine, because music's always been a part of my life. It was very part-time while I was younger, uh, singing in choirs and performing in community shows. And my first chapter career was in accounting. And more specifically, for 22 of those 30 years, it was in the legal industry. I was a legal administrator and law firm accountant. And I loved it. It was great. But in my own personal life, I saw many women over 50 going through some age discrimination, and it maybe wasn't labeled that way, But, budget cuts is a way to kind of move more expensive people off of the budget. And I watched that happen to a few people. I also watched it happen to my mother. My mother had some physical disabilities, and when she got into her 50s, she had osteoarthritis, and she was a phys ed teacher. And she was losing some mobility, so she couldn't really demonstrate things anymore. So she was offered early retirement, and that worked out for her. But as I was watching this as a 30-year-old, I thought, I need to just tuck that in the back of my mind and realize that even though, you can have a great career and it works for everybody, it's not permanent. And I wanted to really set myself up to have a plan to be self-employed in things that I loved so that hopefully I wouldn't get discriminated against or let go because I had topped out at the ceiling, for budget cuts.
But you did love that work. You were very happy. I mean,
I was very happy.
Suited you because, as you've said to me, that you're one of those people that has a very logical, analytical side, but also a very creative side. And yes. I just don't want you to leave the story about your music until you tell us, because this, this
about the hair.
Well, I want to hear about the hair too. And I want to hear about how your mom really got you into this whole thinking about transition and coaching and teaching people who want to not age out or to really thrive. But you were singing in a choir and somebody said, are you a professional singer? And yes. Then you decided to get your master's in singing, but you have a particular kind of a voice that very few people have that enables you to sing. How?
I'm leaning into dramatic mezzo soprano, which means I have a very big voice. And, I didn't start to pursue music professionally until I was 46.
Yeah.
I was singing in a semi-pro choir in Tulsa, Oklahoma, because that's where the company I used to work for is located. And I was divorced and single at the time, and I really wanted to get out there and explore things. And I'd been to Tulsa several times, but I really wanted to see it with fresh eyes. And so that's when I decided to start pursuing music again.
And that's
our choir was so lucky. We got to go to Carnegie Hall in November of 2016, and we were part of several choirs who sang in Messiah Refreshed at Carnegie Hall. And it was that experience with being around other, professional and semi-professional singers and musicians that people started to nudge me to think about it. I had several people ask me if I was professional or if I'd thought about it, and I wasn't. But my choir and my choir director, they just loved me and really encouraged me. And the director started putting me out there as a soloist, and it was just amazing. And I really enjoyed it. So I said, okay, I'm going to do this.
What a leap. And we call that in the heroine's journey, a leap out of your comfort zone, right? I mean, there you were working with lawyers and accountants and doing all that kind of work. And here at 46, you decided to take a chance and do this, and you're still doing it. And I know it was that way with the hair as well. That was something you always wanted to do. And I think your dad discouraged you early on and wanted you to do something more, what he said, like with your brain. But you always loved it. You loved the creativity of it. So that became something that's what you call exploring your passions, correct?
Yep. Yeah. My parents, when I was young, they wanted me to be able to be self-supporting. That's what they were really concerned about. They were both teachers, And, living on teacher salaries is not always, the high end of life. And they just were in a situation where once I was 18, I had to be on my own financially. And so they encouraged me to go for accounting because I was always really good at math. And so when I was 19, that's what I pursued. And it worked out really well. But when I was 40, when I turned 40 is really when I started to think about the future. And I really started using my analytical side to explore what would work year round here in Maine if I want to leave accounting. And, I just thought back to when I was 19. And when I was 19, I really wanted to go to hair school. And so I decided, yeah, I'm going to do this for myself. And so when I was 41, I went part-time at night for 2 years and graduated in 2013 and have been working part-time in that in multiple states and different salons. And then
I'm really glad that you do.
yeah.
It's really helped me. Well, that's how I know you, which has been wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah.
So exploring your passions and allowing yourself to, again, as we say on the heroine's journey, follow your bliss. And so you're adding in all these skills. In the meantime, continuing with the accounting, working
Mm-hmm.
in the law firm, and then what happens? What was the catalyst that made you think, geez, I want to help other people do this. I want to help. I want to be a coach. How did that come about?
So in 2020, May of 2020, we had been in COVID lockdown for, almost a couple months. My mom died suddenly and unexpectedly. And I had turned 50 in March. She had turned 75 in December, the prior December. And on May 2nd, the week before I graduated with my undergraduate degree in music, she passed away.
Yeah.
And she appointed me her personal representative of her estate. I had never done that work before, but she appointed me to that because of my accounting background, because I had been a homeowner and I had been a owner-occupied landlord in the past. And she had a 3-family unit house, and she had another house. She was going to retire. She had a lot of things. And because I was comfortable in accounting and law, she trusted me with that. It was a really hard, journey. I would not wish that on anyone. And because when you are appointed that, you kind of have to put your own grief aside and become a business manager and take over your deceased parents' life, and you have to deal with everything. And I didn't really grieve her until maybe 2 years later.
Yeah. Yeah.
And once the estate closed and I really got to grieve all that, I was able to look at it logically and just really started to see, wow, this could have handled so much better if we had done this prior to, or I will never do that. Well, the way that she did it. And, so I feel like I learned a lot from that experience. It also really changed me in I'll never forget the day that the funeral home called and said that my mom's remains were ready to be picked up. And so I drove over to the funeral home, and they were very kind and loving. And there's my mom's remains in the urn, and I carried it out in a bag.
Mm.
And I put her urn in the back seat. I'm a dog lover, and I have car seats for my dogs. And so put mom in the car seat and I drove off. And I thought, wow, what a profound day this is, when the child that came from the mother is now driving the mother home to her resting place. And I never had children because I struggled with infertility, and that's a whole nother thing. But that identity in that moment for me was, wow, I'm an orphaned, childless woman. What is my legacy going to be?
Mm.
I don't have anyone to input anything into. And that's what really started the wheels turning of where am I going to go with my life, that I feel like I have meaning in all the days that I have left to live. I've seen a quote on your Instagram that says something to the effect of, it's not you only live once, you only die once, you live every day.
Right.
And that really resonates with me. And so through this adjustment of myself and all of the experiences that I had in managing my mom's estate, my aunt, my mother's younger sister, is getting ready to retire. And I have a real passion around helping her through that, because there are other things about retiring that I think we don't think about. Now, I retired from accounting in 2022. And so this plays into it as well. Just, I thought I could give 2 weeks notice and jump into my other careers that I had made for myself. And I quickly found out that was not going to work for me because of how closely tied my identity was to my self-expression that I enjoyed of certain skills.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't about leaving the job. It was just, how am I going to express myself in this way? This is so meaningful to me every day to work with these things.
Right.
And so all of this is percolating together. I call it putting things on the whiteboard and just looking at them, adjusting the shape and size, adjusting how much time they take up in my life. And eventually I come to this beautiful tapestry of things, is what I say. And so that is what has led me to be a transitions coach. Is I know how hard all these things are. I know how hard it is when your mom dies and you got to pick up. I know how hard it is to manage an estate and sell things while you're bawling your head off, And now I have so many close friends who are either single or don't have kids, and they're approaching retirement years, and I see them struggling with, wow, am I going to be lonely? How am I going to spend my time all day when I don't log in anymore, or I don't have to go to the office? And that is such a confrontation. We think preparing for retirement is just about getting the money right, but there's so much more. I really feel there's so much more. And I am on a mission, personal mission, to help people depression proof their retirement years so they can be thriving in who they are, even without their career. That's really what I care about.
And Rebecca, as you explain, and thank you. I know it was hard for you to talk about your mother's passing, but as you explain the steps that it took for you to get to this place and the richness of your experience and what you bring to this is so great that I can only imagine people listening will say, make sure we know how to get to Rebecca. Because I think I know from my own coaching work that there's so many people in transition right now. I mean, the whole world is going through a big transition. And so, of course, the people within it are feeling that and experiencing the change. And what you were talking about, our identities get so caught up in what we've been doing for so long. And then it's without that, well, then who am I? And those questions are so important. And to have someone like you be able to talk them through. And again, with such a rich background as you have, I think is fabulous. So why don't you tell us about, because one of the ideas is that you have something called the eclipse method of decision making. And so with eclipse coming up in April, tell us more about what that is. It sounds like a great tool.
The eclipse method of decision making is what I have developed in order to take people through these transitions. And it has come from just sitting with the experiences I went through with my mom, my own transitions out of basically corporate life into self-employment. And then my logical brain, once it got involved, I thought, how can I duplicate this so that it's pushing the easy button on a transition? Doesn't even matter what the transition is. Maybe you're relocating, maybe you're going through a divorce, Maybe your money just blew up because somebody lost a job. Those are all transitions. But at the core, it's either an unplanned or a planned huge major life change. And so my eclipse method is to pause, first pause with your life and yourself, and just evaluate where you are. And I take it from the perspective of don't think from inside out. Look at your life as if it's a diorama and change your perspective and look from the top down. There's something about looking down at, and just seeing yourself, like imagining it in your mind. What am I doing every day? I go to the kitchen in the morning. I have my ritual. I do this. I log into work. What is that? That'll tell you where you're at. And then the next step is to gain clarity around all that. What things do you love? What things do you not love? What do you want to change? What would light you up? Maybe you've got a small business in your mind and you just have no idea how to go from corporate life to, oh my gosh, I have a brick and mortar, storefront, or you're rocking it in the online world. So it's gaining clarity, evaluation, and clarity. But the rest of it is how you make the decisions, because the how is not really from the mind. The how is from your body and your heart. And the next steps all come from there, because we can all set goals. We can all set goals. I want a house. I want this. I want to be on the lake. I want a car. Blah, 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 blah. That's a standard list that most of us have chased. But those things don't account for who we are individually and our humanity and our own needs as a human on this planet, having a human experience. So all these things came out of my mom dying and being childless, and my own transition and work. So the next one is legacy. Take time to think about what kind of legacy you want to leave. And once you know that, it'll help you back into the decisions you're going to make today about your future. Also, identity. Where are you at with your identity right now? Maybe you identify as a married person with 3 grown children, but your identity in the future might be single widow and your kids live all over the country. And not to like build fear into it, but I think it's good to look at the contrast and, opposites and extremes, because then you're stepping into the worry and you're stepping into the fear, and then all that stuff loses its power. And you can really think, wow, where do I want to go as a person? And what do I want to change? What do I want to keep? And forming your identity around that, especially if you're thinking about leaving a career you've done forever. You really need to take time to work on your identity. And the big one for me is pace. There was something that dramatically changed in me after my mom died. And I just recognized that without thinking about it, I was making decisions on a daily basis based on the pace of life that those things would cause me to live. I also looked at my mom, and, she was an active phys ed teacher, into sports, all of that. But osteoarthritis came on at 52, and she had both hips replaced before she was 55. Wow. That changed the pace of her life forever.
Yeah.
Forever.
Right.
And so thinking that through, pace leads into time management. And I'm excellent at time management. And if you struggle with that, I'm totally your girl. But, for me, I can only deal with like 3 box stores in a day. I can't go to 5. I can't go to the mall. That pace for me is too much. And the cost emotionally is too much. And so I schedule things out. You see how I mean pace determines time management. And then the last 2 are self-expression and energy. I think when we start to leave our careers that we've done forever, if you can start to think about what are the individual skills you're using, what are your daily tasks that you do? For me, I love to wake up, drink coffee, and check email. When I was rocking it as the law firm administrator, I would have 200, 250 emails, bam, as soon as I turned my phone on in the morning. And so time management for me, I read while I drank my coffee, because drinking my coffee was my self-care. And I also
I have
set
that
up,
too. That's
yeah. But then once I transitioned out of being law firm administrator, I don't have 250 emails to read every morning, but I still love the ritual. So I have learned to still keep that time in my daily schedule. And now, instead of reading all the work emails, that's when I do my personal reading. And I do not do anything else in the day until I have that time every morning. I'm like the personal administrator of my life. So I'm getting that self-expression of those tasks that I used to do for everybody else. And now I've transitioned them over to doing them for me. So I still have that fire, that, peace. And then energy, as we all get older, our energy levels change. But it's not just how much energy you have to do something, it's also what will that thing cost me in terms of energy? What will that relationship cost me in personal energy to recover from being around that sort of experience or person? And that really helps me make lots of really good, quick decisions and set boundaries for myself, not only on what comes into my life, but on what I let out to other people. And I really feel like this is how I live my life. I live my life from this place. And I didn't know it until you and I had our pre-interview.
I love the whole vision, and what's so great about it is that I experience it. So to me, it's a very proactive way of creating your life, right? Um, and I walk into your salon with the beautiful piano and the chair that I get to sit in, and you can feel it. You can feel that this is a space that has come from somebody who has consciously created it, and it's calm and soothing. I mean, it's a lovely space that you've created.
Thank you. Thank you.
And and I think people will be very much helped by working with you and going through the eclipse method of decision making. I think that the longest piece of what you've done, your experience, has been with the law firm and accounting. And, when we make these decisions to move on, sometimes it's hard to let go. Did you have a hard time? I did. So I'm speaking from my own experience of having my consulting work and having a hard time letting go of those people who I loved. Was it hard for you to let go?
It was hard. And, like I said earlier, I thought the big change would be a 2 weeks notice. And that didn't work for me, and it didn't work for the law firm either.
Yeah.
And the managing partner is a woman, and she's the one who hired me when I was 30. And I've worked side by side with her for the last, well, now almost 24 years, because as I made my transition, I found and she found that we needed to do it in stages. And I would highly recommend that to anyone who loves their career. That first I dropped down to a different role and 32 hours a week. Then I just worked on training things away. And then the next year it was down to 20. The next year it was down to 10. And then when I was really ready to retire because other things were starting to take off in my life, I did give notice. I gave a 3 months notice. And that prompted a very heartfelt conversation between her and I. And what we realized is that there was still a place for me, a very small place. But she asked me if it would work for me, then she would totally agree to it. Just tell her yes and we'll figure it out. And we did. And so on my 22nd anniversary with the law firm, I retired as a W-2 and opened my own consulting coaching business, LLC, completely separate now. But I am a 1099 contractor and I still consult for them. And that works for us.
And they're in Oklahoma, but that doesn't matter.
Nope, we do everything remote.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, it's a comfort to her because she has practiced law her whole career, and she wanted to make a transition. She wanted to stop practicing law. And so that worked for us. She wanted to just move into the managing partner role, and via remote, I just trained things I did, trained them away to her. That gave her a succession plan. It
Mhm.
gave me a succession plan. And the wheels on the bus kept turning, and it was seamless.
Yeah.
And now I'm just really just their part-time CFO. You know, when you've worked somewhere 22 years, you know a lot, and you don't know what you don't know until something comes up. And so we have a great system. If something comes up that is random or we haven't dealt with, she sends me an email, and we just book a call and we work through it. Yeah.
You know, another message I think that comes from your experience, I would ask you if you agree, is the message of it's never too late to do something.
Oh, absolutely.
When you
If you're
started,
breathing, you got time.
I mean, how old were you when you were singing, when you went to, where did you go that had the big concert and, um,
Carnegie Hall,
yes, how old were you then?
46.
Yeah, so the people that say, "Oh, it's too," I love singing. I'm 40 or 35. They say it's too late. You have to start when you're 10 or something. Yeah, and the same with hair. You went to hair school a
At
lot.
41.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think that's a big message of what everybody needs to hear listening to you and your story, Rebecca.
I think when you start to develop multiple skills that aren't related, you are diversifying your own life, because if you develop multiple things, you have other things you can turn on or turn up if something changes in the other. And I like that. I like not having all my eggs in one basket. I love the diversity of high analysis and teaching and creating content and courses, but I also love the expression of arts, and for me that I see hair just as much as being an artist as I do singing and doing voiceover.
Yeah.
So
And it builds your confidence, right?
it does.
You
It
try
does.
something new and it works and it didn't kill you, and you keep trying things that are new, and it builds that confidence. Yeah.
It's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to learn at in your late 40s and early 50s. That's a whole different learning style than when you're 19. Um, but I love it. I mean, it makes me feel alive. It makes me feel spry. It makes me feel young. Just vibrant. I want to be vibrant. I want to have a vibrant life always.
Well, I can tell you, you are. And I know that personally. And I know that you've told me that when you were getting your degree, your master's, and when you went to hair school, both cases, I think you were the oldest in both those classes. Am I right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, yeah, the willingness to try something new, to have it be uncomfortable, it just goes with exploring and testing your limits. And that's what being a heroine is all about.
Right?
So, Rebecca,
Yes.
is there anything that I haven't asked you that you wanted to be sure we talked about?
No, I don't think so. Just my website.
Which is pretty simply, why don't you tell us? But it's RebeccaGoff.com, and it'll be in the show notes of this podcast. So
Okay.
yeah. So the best way for people to reach you is to go to RebeccaGoff, GOFF.com.
Yep, if they're looking for coaching.
Right.
The salon has its own separate website and its own number, and that's just RebeccaGoffSalon.com in Bath, Maine.
Okay, which is how I found Rebecca.
Yeah.
And so here we are. We've had this conversation full of such useful information for people listening. And what would you, they've taken in a lot, but they're busy people. If you want them to just remember one thing about what you have talked about, what do you want them to remember?
Listen to the small voice.
There you go.
It will teach you everything you need to know.
Right. And trust it, believe in it, right?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah,
You'll never know until you try. You'll never know until you try.
right, right. This is great, Rebecca. Thank you so much. I've really been looking
Thank you,
forward
Susanna.
to talking to you and having people hear your wisdom and share your story, which is a great one. So thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
we'll be showing this probably in a next couple weeks. And again, the show notes will have your information so people can get in touch with you. Thank you all for those of you maybe listening, and for those of you viewing us on the YouTube channel. Thank you for being here, and I hope you'll tune in for my next interview too. Okay, have a great journey.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the podcast for real life heroines. Your time and presence mean the world to us. If you're hungry for more inspiration and ready to craft your own heroine story, connect with Susanna outside of the show. Visit SusannaLillard.com to discover her courses and programs designed to empower you on your journey. Until next time, may your days be filled with the courage and strength of a true heroine. Stay inspired.